Netbeard would be an interesting name for an open source project.
Yeah, it really would be, wouldn't it? You'd probably get a lot of
Is it
Google
just
hits
me,
on
or have you
Yeah.
noticed that like shows are starting to end like a minute late
Oh,
on
yeah.
everything?
They're stretching out.
They do that on they do it on
They're
purpose.
pushing a little bit
Yeah.
more, like 1 minute more commercials in,
Yeah.
and bumping them up against each other.
Well, it even screws up the COTS
Yeah.
HD
Yeah.
DVR stuff.
Sick beard.
Yep.
Sick.
Check it out. Sick beard.
As SIQ?
SICK.
Okay.
Sick beard. Like sick ergo. Yeah, sick beard.
I think.
It's a terrible name, but it's the ultimate PVR application that downloads and manages your TV shows. So you don't need cable, you can find it all in there. Yeah. Sick beard.
Which would be good because the new season of Doctor Who is about to start.
Suppose when TV show airs from 7 to 8.
Yeah.
How
The
fast,
Easter
when is
special
it
is the
on?
first
24 hours. That's what
I
they
usually
No,
do.
it's, well, it's Easter special. They've talked about it already.
Yes.
They've given a good
Not
synopsis.
Did you see the
has
2
reported-
episode
Oh, yeah, I'm not talking
special?
about streaming at all. I'm talking about
It was
available
like
now.
5 minutes each.
Somebody reports on
No, I did not. I went
It was
for
only online. So.
Yeah, and I hadn't. I saw that the teasers were out there. I hadn't.
It's not a
searched
teaser.
them.
Not very
Oh,
It's
okay.
a mini encapsulated episode.
70s.
Probably on Netflix.
There was actually a 5-minute teaser that they put out on the BBC's website, but of course you get the "not for your zone" message,
Yeah.
so I have to go search someplace else to see if I can find it.
Pinky in the brain, and I was
But
able to find him for a
The,
while.
the whole
but they put
concept
away.
of Richard Nixon and Neil Armstrong's leg, or Neil Armstrong's
I'll
foot,
never get anything done.
fall into the opener. It's like,
They were just.
Because
they had these level-on ponds that kids didn't understand. And I watched them as an adult, and I went, yeah. And I went back and I was like, this is stuff that made, you know,
The animated is especially.
You have to wear it only for meetings.
Outside in a second, where just what you're wearing.
Oh, we're going to Charlie Sheen's
I
house?
choose to step it up a notch.
I love my cargo pants. Okay, welcome to April 2011, the Omaha Linux Users Group. I'm your host, John Larson. Wait for Kevin to come in.
Hi, John.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
Hello. As many of you know, we've been talking about Infotech just about every month. So that's coming up this month, the 19th and 20th, at the Quest Center Omaha. So be there or be square. Got some pretty cool stuff I've been working on. Yawning already?
That's
Missed my nap.
So visit the website. There's some other stuff going on. If you can't,
Infotech with no H.
with no H.
What do you do if you type the H?
It's probably some porn site. I don't know.
Well,
Infotech. Let's see.
I could tell you a story about something like that. Do you know what a Twitter fountain is?
It's a company.
It scours like Picasa and Flickr for pictures that have been tagged with a given keyword, and it also looks for those keywords on Twitter. So it shows the pictures and shows the tweets. So like if you're at a conference and you say tag stuff like this, those pictures and the tweets will show and people can look at it. Well, we have to use Infotech 2011 as the keyword. You can't use Infotech. Only because there's a conference in South America that uses the similar tag, but some of the pictures we got are not for public consumption.
Unless you live in South America.
I think it was a transgender group in South America. So it didn't take too
Why
long
would they
to
call
convince
it
the marketing
Infotech?
folks not to use that. So tonight, our president, Brian Roberson, is going to talk about what he did with IPV6 on the OLUG server. Is that
Sure.
sure? Okay.
Sure.
And answer all of our questions about it.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
So take it away, Brian.
Student.
Well, just kind of get a baseline. Has anybody set up IPv6 before at all?
Looking at you, Noel.
No. How about IP version 5?
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it?
Never existed.
Nope.
It's actually called the Stream Protocol, and it actually is an IP version 5.
Oh,
So a little backdrop is that's exactly why it's called IP version 6, because there already is an IP version 5.
That actually
Kinda
is
died.
something. It's actually
Yeah, it was called the Stream Protocol, and it was a different way to actually stream datagrams across there. Yeah, it's dead. It's long dead. So to avoid any confusion, they actually used the version field in the IP header as tagged as 5. So to avoid any confusion, that's why IP version 6 is the latest IPNG. 1992 is when this first started, IPNG, believe it or not. So yeah, I'll just kind of jump through my slide. I didn't spend a lot of time on this, but a little bit of a primer. IP version 4 obviously has 4 octets. 6 has got 8 groups of hex digits separated by colons with a mask at the end of it. Everybody know what this is?
yeah, that's the
Local
host.
Home.
Why is that? Explain the double colon thing, will ya?
Okay, so
Shortcut.
the colons are used to express multiple zeros in their groups. All right, so if you look at a string of an address, right, it could be 2001 0000 colon 0000 colon 0. I'm not going to write them all out, but there's 8 groups of those, right?
Okay.
So a way to compress that when you have multiple sets of zeros is 2 dots. But you can only do that in one place in your address bar. So wherever you have the most sets of zeros, that's where you put it.
Oh, so okay, so you can't guarantee that it's representing 2 sets or 3 sets or
Nope.
4 sets or 5 sets.
And that's
These
why
are there.
you
X
can only have
number
it
of
one,
sets.
you can only have it one time, right?
Oh, okay.
And the logic in the IP software will fill in the
It knows-
necessary
It'll expand
number
it out.
of
It'll expand it out.
Yeah, exactly. It
Expand it like a
knows that the
variable.
length of this is 4x groups.
It'll count how many groups
Eight
before, how many
groups
groups
of
after it, and then fill it in.
Right, so it knows to put all the zeros there.
Everything between side-by-side zeros will be all zeros, or side-by-side colons will be all zeros to fill out.
All zeros to
the
fill
full
it out.
field.
Pull out the field.
It's just a variable. It's just a variable.
As many as it
Variable
needs.
length
As many as it
string.
needs. That's
Yep, exactly. Or you can always write it out every single time, which is a pain in the ass.
Whichever you.
So some common prefixes, and when I say prefixes, it's the first octet, right? FE80, that's the link local, this non-routable space. So anything that you see with an address of FE80 colon whatever, it's only going to be your link local addressing. FF00, it's multicast. Anything after that is a multicast address.
The IPv4 parallels for these, the FE81, would that be akin to
Nothing.
the 10? No.
Nothing. There's nothing like this in IPv4.
Nothing like that before. Okay.
There is 224 addressing here for multicast.
That's not the same as 127.
Nope.
Nope. Not the same as
And nope, because this is,
169.4 or-
127 would
And
assume
then-
that it's a loop back, and it's software only, it's specific to that host. FE80 is link local, so I could talk to another device on FE80 across the Ethernet, right? But it's only going to be local to my subnet. It's not going to be routed outside.
So it's non-routable.
It's non-routable.
Oh, so wouldn't that be like a 10-net private IP?
No, because you can route 10.
Oh, we just
Yeah,
don't.
you technically can route.
We technically, we just
Just
don't.
not out
right?
into the
We don't route
public
it to
internet,
public.
but on your
Oh,
internal,
right,
Yeah,
it's still
you can
routable.
actually route.
Hierarchically, right, you can do
Okay, so that really is like
10.8
a layer
at the
2.
top, and then a router that has an
Broadcast.
interface on 10.7.
That's just.
A router that's got
the-
10.6.
yeah,
It's a layer
the
2
10
broadcast.
This guy
10A
is
block is just an
specific
internal only.
to the, specific to that
Okay.
network.
Yeah.
Okay. Will it cross a switch or is it
No,
just a route?
no, it'll cross the switch.
Switch,
Layer,
cross
layer
the
2
switch.
only. It'll
Layer two
never cross the
switch.
layer 3 boundary.
That's nice.
Common subnetting. There's lots of talk
There's
of
an
this
eraser over
on Nanog and whatnot, but everybody seems to have started using /64s everywhere to include point-to-point links, right? So if I have 2 hosts and I want to connect them together, use a 64-bit mask to give you 18 undecillion something crazy, something
Yes.
insane.
That's all?
Some really large number that you will
Right
never
there.
hit.
He'll never
I think it's 18 undecillion, 446 something.
non-alien.
I think as long as it's
Hey, wait a minute.
Yes.
100,000 times the current
Comment
population of the
wrong
planet
place
will
or
be
something.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 73, there's no
Oh.
three digits in there.
Yeah, should be a 0 there. Typo.
Zero
73.
understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or 730. I don't know.
Yeah, I have
Can't tell
that.
you.
I have that many addresses.
If you're concerned about that one digit missing, I don't know. We got a problem.
Yeah, I've got that many addresses assigned to me from Hurricane Electric. I'm never going to use them.
There you go.
Actually, you have 2 times that, right? Because you have a /64 for your point-to-point,
Yes.
and you have a
yes.
routed 64.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that extra set. Yeah.
Another thing to note about IP version 6 is no more ARP. It's gone. Completely replaced by ICMP version 6. Not going to go into a lot of detail on network, neighbor discovery or router advertising, etc. One thing to really note about that point, though, is typically when you think about firewalls, what's the first thing you block? It's ICMP. ICMP is a requirement for IPv6 to work.
Because of that.
Period.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Don't be rude. Don't block your ICMP.
Yeah, don't block ICMP. You'll break stuff.
Yeah. Don't
So
be
this is
rude.
a graphical representation of what the actual IP version 6
Wow.
address space is. The stuff in yellow is what's being out there assigned globally now, 2000/3. Right, so we have 4000/3, 6, 8, 8, 0, and C0 starts to not even touched yet, right?
0.
The special use networks are at the top and at the bottom. The top ones are your link, your locals, right? Your /8, that's your local loopback type addressing. All the way at the end is your multicast addressing. Some other stuff. Let's see. Link local
Already
addressing.
got
at the
something
top.
deprecated, huh?
Yeah.
You do exactly. Yeah, site local addressing is already deprecated.
Well, it's been since '92, right?
Yeah,
It's already old.
Exactly.
It's our fault. We just haven't implemented it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything I've seen has always been in the 2001 space. Everything. I haven't seen a lot of 2002 or 2000s.
You'll see Torito is in the 2002. That's Microsoft stuff. I think that's 2002.
But I mean, from a global unicast, what's out there now? What's being used?
Actually, you will see it come across if you have an IPv6 web server running. I've already logged them.
Is that something local though from your sites or not?
I've seen people actually hit my site with it.
Well, I guess as long as you get a route back to it, it works.
Yeah, I mean it's. I wouldn't say that it would be highly reliable, but people have hit it. I've hit Google. I've hit Google's IPv6 servers with it.
So, needless to say, I think IP version 6 gives you something about like 100,000 addresses per person on the planet. So it's going to be kind of hard to run out of space at that point.
We'll never use that much.
Great.
You never, yeah, exactly.
Never.
We'll never
Never.
use more than 64 kilobytes of RAM.
Never.
Crazy.
Yeah.
How about a 640?
It was 64.
16.
That's a big pie.
Okay, address woes. What's my address? There's 2 different ways you can do address configuration. There's a stateful and a stateless. It's pretty interesting. It's more of a chicken and the egg kind of thing. Stateless autoconfig uses ICMP version 6 to find out its prefix and what its mask is and whatever available routers are. One issue though, it doesn't give you DNS, right? It's not like DHCP, so okay, I got my address, but how do I resolve hosts? Can't do that. Unless your OS supports RFC 5006, which at this current date, none does.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Is
So-
DNS advertised then if you have 5006?
Yes.
Part of the router announcement?
If you have it properly configured. If you have it properly.
To understand the announcement. It's kind of
So how's Microsoft going to screw this one up?
They're actually.
So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to hard code your DNS in that?
Next slide.
Oh.
Deal with it.
So that's the shortcoming of stateless autoconfig. What are the other options? DHCP or AKA stateful configuration. You need a router with Damon called RADVV tell your clients to actually use DHCP v6, right? So you need the stateless to tell your clients to use stateful.
Yes, now doesn't that sound confusing?
Not exactly. You need to set the other config flag for the clients to say, okay, go to a DHCP server to pull the rest of your non-addressing configuration.
Like the DNS.
Oh, and by the way, DHCP version 6 does not give you your default router.
Oh, for God's sake.
So you got one that gives you everything but name resolutions. You got the other one that gives you everything except for your router.
This was a large committee that came up with this. A very large committee.
It's a circular thing, right? I'd love to say it's a Microsoft problem. It's not. It's a freaking IETF problem.
Actually, it sounds like something from the government.
Exactly.
Yeah, and smoking something.
But to their kind, right? So RFC 5006, once it's been, it is fully ratified. Once all the operating systems actually support it, it's a way for it to configure themselves into DNS.
So that addresses all those issues. It's just its own new
Exactly. For my answer, what the hell do you do? Use them both. You have to, right?
2007.
From a how do you take 100 PCs and make them IPv6 and make sure that their name resolution works and the addressing assignment works? You have to use both of them. You have to use stateless and stateful to make it work. Use your you can use SLAC or DHCP for your address assignment and prefix, but you're already there. Might as well just do your address assignment from stateful config.
Should we assume that DHCP from now on would have a V6 behind it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm
So
just that's all.
So
I'm pretty sure, but I just want to make sure everyone knew that too.
So is the DHCP v6 that is currently bundled with Fedora, Debian, Debian stable, all the stable distros?
I believe it's actually a separate project.
Well, I mean, it is
package.
a separate package, but is it stable enough that we can deploy it in the out there in the environment and trust it to work?
I've used it, and it works pretty good.
Okay.
But then again, I've also used the Microsoft one. It works pretty good too.
Well, I gotta get
No tomatoes thrown.
I gotta get the Microsoft guy to do that, but
And what was the name of that package? I'm sorry.
It's ISC. It's the regular DHCP data, but it's a separate package for it.
For specific
It says V6 behind it.
It's just
on there.
V6.
I think I've seen that in Yum list before.
Yep.
Yeah, it
Yep.
is. It's just V6 after the end of it.
It's like IP6
So,
tables.
with all this dynamic address assignment, what do you do about name resolution, right? The option is you can still go back to static addressing, right? So if I give you an address, I say this is your deal and this is your host name, I can statically assign it in DNS, can statically assign it to your interface, call it a day. But how do you do that dynamically? Obviously, you need to have a DHCP server that will do dynamic DNS updates and or a client that does DNS updates on its own behalf. Right? So
Talks to the DNS server.
talks to the
and
DNS
says
server
update
and says, update this name because I'm here now. Or, again, use statically. But, as you can see with these long addresses and what your gateway is going to be, what your name is going to be, what your prefix is, a highly possibility that you're going to fat finger something. I would say I've used the static method on a few things that I wanted to make sure that I knew where it was and I knew I could make sure that the forward DNS works. But those are going to be few and far between. In a large-scale network that you're basically just servicing a bunch of clients, you're going to have to use these automatic configuration options.
Is there a security issue with the fact that any machine can ever do a router advertisement, say, on your gateway?
There absolutely is.
Yes.
Absolutely, right? Anything can send an RA, right? An RA is a router advertisement. It says, hey, I'm out here. I can route your IPv6 traffic. There is some functionality and features in some layer 2 and layer 3 devices. My realm is Cisco, right? That can stop that, can actually block it at the ingress and say, you're not a router. You're not sending
Block
those.
them at the port.
So you can block them at the port. But yeah, very good point, right? You have to do that on the ingress of your network, unless you want your XP client to send out.
Yeah, that
Router advertisements.
Fun.
Yeah, block pro.
I guess that's no different than theoretically I could start up my own DHCP server on my client and wreak havoc on a V4 network, right?
Exactly. Hey, it's no that.
Well, just say that. It's not like it's any worse than it is now, right? That's still an issue we have now.
I've chased those down, but
Yeah.
a good thing to do is, block protocol 40, protocol 41, and I think it's 41. Is it
41 is yeah, IP.
Yeah,
IP6 and IP.
Yeah, the IP6 and 4 tunneling on your network, except on the device that is actually doing your tunnel if you're doing tunneling.
That's a good point. That's protocol 41.
Yeah. So somebody can't set up another tunnel.
Right.
Not every tunnel is protocol 41.
Well, yeah,
There's
but-
other things they can transport version 6.
Yeah, I forgot what the other one is. I'm sorry.
I think it's 51. Address list. Yes, absolutely. They're now called Quad A records. Just a little note. Every time I hear that, I think of the freaking when the Moonanites become Quad Laser. Quad A records. No one can defeat
Never
the
forgets.
Quad A records.
Never forgets.
DNS, more DNS. Most registrars are supporting IPv6 glue. What that means is you can actually assign an IP version 6 address to a name server within your registrar. So usually when you go and register a domain like GoDaddy or whatnot, what's your name server? You got to put the name, you got to put the address. Most registrars will let you put the version 6 in there. I think 10 of the root name servers now have IP version 6 addresses.
10 of the
as well.
16. 10 of the 16.
10 of the 16.
But there are some top-level domains that do not have IPv6 glue yet. I think there's 2 or 3 of the like CC and other ones that don't have it.
ComNet and org all have V6.
Definitely have it. I think Info just got it.
Nobody uses those crazy.
Does XXX have it yet?
I have no clue. I'm not buying a domain over there.
.xxx.
Uh,
Not familiar with that one?
So name resolution really is the chicken and the egg, right?
Actually, they're probably there before.
You absolutely don't need an IP
Something's gotta drive the
version
industry.
6 DNS server to resolve IP version 6 records, right? An IP version 4 name server can hand out triple or quad A records. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Although it would be polite to make your name server.
Yes. So in the cases of back to what if I got everything but my DNS servers? If you still use an IP version 4 DNS server, it'll still work, right? Because the only difference is the record type. It's not like it's anything special.
You're just asking for that record.
You're asking for a quad A instead of an A. What's the IP version 6?
It's just a transaction
It's quad
based.
A.
So you're making the request on V4, but you're getting a V6 address back.
Exactly. Just think of it if I queried a DNS server for a text record, right? It's a variable length kind of feel, right? It doesn't matter what text comes back, right? Now it's a version 6 address coming back for quad.
Isn't there a P2P protocol that uses DNS as a binary transfer mechanism using text records? I mean, it's just data transfer, right?
It's part of DNSSEC, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a way of sending.
Yeah, there's
stuff.
arbitrary data.
There's all kinds of interesting stuff you can do with text records now, including putting RSA keys in them.
Yeah. Actually, I think I'm doing that to verify mail hosts now.
Yeah. Yeah, SPF has went to the next record. I can't remember what the heck it's called, but it's actually you put an RSA key in the text record of the SPF, and it actually will let you get its certificate and talk TLS to the SMTP server with the cert that is supplied via DNS.
Interesting.
Most recent OSs will default to 6 and fail to 4. For example, my iPhone, when I set this up in my house and got everything working, bam, got an IPv6 address, got a name server, got everything, and it just started using V6 out of the box.
Yeah, my
phone, by default.
That's pretty cool.
Right?
You're ready for June 8th.
I'm ready, exactly.
Yeah.
What carrier?
Windows XP is kind of kooky. 7 and Vista works flawlessly. Linux, flawlessly. Apple, just about all Apple products. The only thing that I haven't seen use version 6 from an Apple product is the Apple TV stuff.
Actually, it does. A friend of mine tested his. It got IPv6, just none of the Apple sites are IPv6.
Exactly. There you go.
Interesting.
So, here's the problem. Majority of ISPs aren't offering IP version 6 yet, at all. So how do you get around that? You have to use a tunnel. You have to use a tunnel to a broker of some sort. There's more than just Hurricane Electric. That's just kind of what I selected. There's sixxs.net and a couple other that you can go out and use.
Go6 or is that how you pronounce that?
I have no idea. There's more than Hurricane Electric. I chose Hurricane Electric for a couple of reasons. I knew somebody had set up once, and I knew that they had a certification process that actually walked you through setting some of this stuff up. And as you progressed in actually configuring IPv6 throughout your network, you progressively got better certifications. Uses an IPv6 in IP tunnel. It's a V6 and V4. They assign you a /64 to your point-to-point, and then they also route you another /64 across that tunnel. It's protocol 41. So if you're behind a firewall or a NAT or whatever, you need to make sure that your firewall can properly transmit 41, or just make a pinhole for protocol 44. It's not a TCP or UDP port, it's actually a protocol. Right? So a little bit different requirements there. So Linux requirements, IPv6 support the kernel. Most recent flavors have it by default. You can test it real quick with this test command, right? If the interface is there, echo, you're running, you're good. The IP command is very useful from the IP route package, so if you don't have it, I would highly suggest installing the IP route package.
Any recent distro should already install it.
Exactly. In fact, Ubuntu even uses IP by default instead of IP config for its network.
Exactly.
Can I ask you, what device do you put your /64 addresses on for your point?
Whatever your tunnel termination device is, and whatever interface you want to route to.
Well, they say to use something like TUN0. I usually give it a better name, like
you can call it whatever you want.
Well, I know you can call it whatever you want, but physical device. We're all talking then using a Linux PC with 2 NIC cards.
I've used this on a Linux box. I've used this on a Cisco iOS device. You basically just create a tunnel interface.
A Cisco iOS device that.
You don't have to put a second NIC in though. It
Yeah,
can just be it
uses
a
virtual
interface on the
interface.
one NIC you've got in your box, and it'll work along with an existing V4 address.
So your ends are V4 addresses, which
Exactly.
are masqueraded as the /64 point-to-point, and then there's the /64 that you use inside it to assign to all your internal clients.
Yeah, using RADBD.
Right. So if you have a Linux box doing your NAT, right, and you have two NICs in it now, right, one going to the internet, one on the inside, the tunnel will actually terminate on this interface, whatever that is, and you'll actually create a software interface called it's called a tunnel. You can call it whatever you want. You call it foobar. Doesn't matter, right? But it looks like a loopback, right? So if you do an if config -a, it shows LO0 and it's got blah, blah, blah. It'll look just like that.
Sure.
But the actual tunnel will be terminated on the outside interface. We get to a little bit of the config of that on Linux.
And that basically would mean you can still do V4 on your internal address.
Exactly.
It's just tunnel then.
There we go. More tunnel config. This is what my Ubuntu looks like. I called it AG tunnel. Again, you can call it whatever the heck you want. It's a tunnel type of V4 tunnel, right? And I'm going to assign it an IP version 6, right? So it's not INET, it's INET 6. I gave it an address, gave it a net mask. Time to live is...
Was that address assigned? That was the address assigned to you?
Yes.
Okay.
This statically gave they statically gave me this. And then this is what they statically gave me for the tunnel endpoints. So they're 1 and I'm 2.
Why you set time to live so low? I mean,
Just
before
because I don't want to go around the world 15 times. And that's all that does, right? It just
Right.
it creates, right? So trace route tries out after 30 hops.
Yeah, but I mean, the default IP4 is 255. Trace route is, right, 30 ops or something.
Right.
Okay, I was just curious.
Seemed logical to me. I don't want it to go more than 64
Well,
hops
if the
away.
tunnel goes down, why do you want to wait for the 64 counter? You just want to have it, or
Well, that's
55 counter.
this means how many hops, how many destination, how many endpoints am I going to go through before
How many
I say
routes?
I can't get to it.
Yeah.
Before I give up.
So there's the endpoint, right? That's Hurricane Electric's address. Here's my local address, right? This would be the IP version 4 address that I have down here. Right. And that's it. And that's in my Etsy network interfaces file. And that actually brings the tunnel up. And then they also give you another /64, right? If you look at it, it's kind of hard to read, right? But the tunnel address is the 1F10/64. What they give me on my network on the inside is 1F11/64. So I just bound that to this side. So on this NIC, if you do an IF config, you'll see I have an IP version 4 and an IP version 6 address on that NIC. On this one, I only have an IP version 4, and then on this one, this software guy, this tunnel, I have an IP version 6.
Sorry, why would you want to put it? Are you saying to put an IP routable 6 address on your local host? Yeah. From the block you got from Hurricane Electric?
They give you two, right? They give you one for the tunnel,
Yeah.
and then they give you one that they route across the tunnel to you.
Right.
Right. So
In that previous page, you had something about adding one to your local host. Hello.
I'll get to that when I get to the OLUG server, right?
Okay,
Because so in this example, this is my home, right? I'm going to accept the tunnel and I'm going to route it on the LAN, right? From an OLUG server perspective, it's in a data center somewhere in Linode, whatever. Their local network is not IPv6 enabled, right?
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily would want it on the local network, so I could create a virtual, like another low LO1, right? So that extra 64 that they route to me is only local to my box. I'm not routing for that whole subnet. It's just local on my box. Does that make sense? Coolness. Look at this. Look at my address. Where did I log in from?
You should be checking the last log.
Exactly. This proves a point, right? Name resolution is super important.
I was so proud of all the V4 addresses I've memorized.
Yeah.
That's all
Dot 44 is blah. I'm sorry, he ain't doing that with this anymore.
So the last octet is 8E.
Mm-hmm.
Is that 00AE or 8000?
So let's look.
No, it's 0080. It's the leading zeros.
The leading zero. 00.
That's a great question, though. It's
Great, great point.
Leading
right?
zeros are understood.
It's always leading.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Like
470
0D,
yeah.
4B.
And a double colon assumes everything in between.
Is
Great.
zeros.
Zeros.
Great.
Left justifying left side, right justifying right side, and fill it with zeros.
Exactly. There you go. Must be a program.
That forward.
Recover.
Some interesting stuff. How do you know
I
what your
took
daemon's
Cobalt in
doing?
college 30 years ago.
Good old NetStat.
What the heck is your daemon doing, right? We all know like Apache is going to listen to port 80, right? What addresses are you going to listen to, though? Cool thing, netstat AMP. P, I didn't run this as a root, but P will usually give you what the process is out here. So this tells me that whatever this daemon is, obviously it's an AD, right? It's listening specifically on this address, port 80, port 53. Same thing here, but any address on IP version 6, port 53.
So does the daemon for IPv6, can that determine what address it's coming from?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do something like split DNS, where depending on the address you're coming from, depends on
It all depends on your
determines.
daemon. Depends on the logic in your daemon.
I think Bind can do it, because Bind can do that now with V4 addresses, right? If you're coming from this IP, serve this. If you're coming from this IP, serve this.
Yeah,
So
but
you
I
think
think
you'll
that's
be able to do V6 too, right?
yeah, I think that's why it has to listen on each individual interface.
It all depends on the configuration, right? Because if you look at this one, it says listen to everything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right? So
Yeah, I think the only time you specifically put an IP in there is if you want to say, I'm multi-honed, but only listen on this one guy right here, right?
Right.
My squid proxy server only listening on my internal NIC, not both my internal and my external NIC. So you'd have a net set AMP that looks like that.
So again, some do that,
Okay.
some are smart, like Apache, right? This is the only line that's listening, right? It's TCP version 6, but by default, it's still going to listen to version 4, right? Port 80.
Yep.
Every interface, every address family, port 80.
At least I can still use those port numbers I memorized, right?
That's right.
Still port 80.
Exactly. Still port 80. Still port 80. Big ass long string, but still port 80.
You mean IPv6 won't block 22?
I guess 65,000 ports was enough.
So far, that's still enough.
How close is that address space?
That's a good question. Well, it's really 1024, right?
People keep just
Usually when you're running
debating the
problems,
numbers and reusing them. So
Yeah.
port address, like port address translation, like an outbound NAT, right? You're
Right.
natting every, a bunch of hosts to a single host. That's when you're running into problems with port
The
allocation.
Pirate Bay.
Yeah, you got 50 hosts behind your router, and they're all hitting torrents off of everything. They're going to run out. Eventually, going to run out of ports, right?
Or some poorly written applications. Not that I've ever run into them. We had to modify, I think it was Windows to the Windows registry, so they would accept more ports.
Really?
Yeah, I think Windows actually starts at 32,000 or something. It goes to 64. Right? It doesn't use the full spectrum.
Well, I
There's
didn't
some
remember that we
RFC
had-
for breaking up ports into 3 different sections. 1024 and below.
Yeah.
1024 to like 25,000.
1024 thing's the old Unix thing, right? You had to be
Right.
root
Yeah.
Had to be root
remind
to do
underneath
that.
actually,
1024.
those are still
I didn't know
still
there was a-
considered privileged.
Yeah.
Break it
privileged
past
ports.
1024.
They are.
I don't know why. It's not really good.
Interesting.
So once you got your interfaces up, it's pretty damn simple to make your Linux box your router. You got two things. Number one, enable IP version 6 forwarding, just like you would in IP version 4, right? And there's the conf file for sysctl. I didn't want to give you the echo one into the proc file system. This is the right way to do it in the sysctl.
The right way to do it. Be sure to tell Chad that tomorrow.
Well, he'll probably listen.
And if
through
you
the
use the
video.
stateless configuration, there's a little daemon that actually runs on your Linux box that provides router advertisements, RAs. This kind of got jacked up. There's the config file.
Advanced
send
send advert
advertisements
on prefix.
Tell it what the prefix
And then
is.
the address.
Advertisements on link. Advertise to anonymous systems on.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do stateful configuration, obviously you need a daemon DHCP version 6.
Is
Config
the-
file.
Is the config file the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Started. Yikes.
It,
It looks the same.
Oh, all right. I didn't read the next line yet,
Looks the same as his little brother.
which is good because we're thinking
Yeah.
as we go.
So back to that router advertisement, David. There really is anybody and their dog can run that.
Yep.
There's nothing in the protocol that says I'm going to accept advertisements from you and not from you. It's just like a broadcast. I'm going to get it.
No more broadcasts.
I know, but damn it,
It's multicast.
I can't think of any other way to describe it.
Yeah.
no, I mean it doesn't broadcast.
It's listified. It's router advertising. I'm a router.
I thought it really didn't broadcast. I thought the receiving host said, "Help! I need a router."
You can do
Yep.
an
It's
RS
all
is
part
when
of
the device comes up, but the RAs are.
I didn't want to go into a lot of detail because this can get fuzzy.
That's
Okay,
fine.
But what that process is called is DAD, duplicate address detection. Part of it is neighbor discovery, right? I'm going to send a neighbor discovery to a multicast address of FF00, blah, 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 blah. One is, everything on the mobile. An NA, a neighbor advertisement, is I'm here, right? Populate your ARP cache is what you would think in an IPv4, right? But it's not. It's neighbor it's a neighbor.
And that's happening all the time.
Yep.
I'm here, I'm
and
here,
part
I'm
of
here.
this NA, you can set an RA. I'm a router, by the way. I'm a router.
Oh, okay.
So when a
So it's
host
just like
comes
a
up,
config flag set in that.
yep, exactly. I want to discover my neighbors. Where's my neighbors? Here's all your neighbors, because I'm talking multicast.
That's kind of like the Cisco Discovery Protocol on before.
Or Microsoft's NetBUI crap.
Similar.
Or
But
NetBUI. You
that
just said
all
NetBUI.
of this is DAD. All of that is
Duplicate
DAD.
address discovery.
Discovery or detection?
Detection.
Detection.
There's a lot of sub functions within site DAD that just are very
To the wiki.
ugly. but part of it is neighbor discovery and RA.
It was a bit creative activity.
Again, creative activity.
Problem.
But again, one thing to note though, all of this, ICMP.
Oh,
Mm.
Yes.
And that's the reason for you
That's why you have to
to
have
have
it.
to have ICMP. Gotta have ICMP to find out the network and all that good stuff.
I don't mind blocking or letting ICMP run free within my network, but on my border, I don't want people being able to find out my internal.
So inherently within IPv6, there's some things that have been pushed to the host rather than the network. For example, window sizes. That is absolutely completely done by the host on A and host on B. There's no truncating or changing of frame sizes or MTU or any of that crap. It's always at the end stations. So if you do not have end-to-end ICMP, guess what
You can't
breaks?
send any traffic.
Oh.
So
And there is no inside.
There's your attack
IPv6
vector.
addresses are public.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely publicly routable.
That's
There
an
is
important
no
distinction.
inside.
For so many years, we've thought of
yeah, there is no
this
RF
network right
network
here
is
is our own little internal network. Nobody can get this from
Nobody
outside.
can find it,
But that goes away with V6, doesn't it?
Yeah, it goes away, and you just control the ports. You control what ports people
Microsoft's
can.
software is going to become vastly
Well,
more
it goes
vulnerable
back
than
to
Why do you think there's
each
a firewall
device
there?
needs to have its own security firewall
Yeah,
that has to
you
run.
said
You
that this
have to
stuff's
have
pushed to the
firewall.
endpoint.
Everything
Now
is at
firewalling
the endpoint.
is pushed to the endpoint.
Glad I don't turn it off when I
Everything
put my
is at the
boxes on.
endpoint now. So if you look at some of the VMware stuff, right, or any of the virtualizations, and they're pushing all of that firewall stuff as close to the damn host as possible for this very reason. Very reason. You have to trust that your endpoint's going to be able to survive an attack.
So they give you this tunnel that you can,
Every
they give
host
this
is now
pool of
an edge router. Every host
IPv6
is now an
addresses,
edge router.
and you have
A
25
billion
machines in your
bots
house
out
or
there
devices, and they all
There goes job security.
They all push their name back up to that dynamic DNS host on the other side of the tunnel?
To the one that I control. Yeah.
The one that you control. So you have your own DNS server that, so if you leave home, you go on vacation, you
Address
want to
registry, yeah.
access
Doesn't-
iPad 3 at
Yeah.
brianshouse.org, you can.
Yeah, it doesn't work. I mean, you could get it to work, right, with the proper hierarchy, right? But
Yeah.
why would you?
One of the most common things.
Well,
The most ports.
So you're saying that, the routers might be wide open, the firewalls might be wide open for IP6 addresses.
There's only a few.
If you don't have
places that don't
ICMP, the router won't be able to talk to one another. Because
They
what
don't
I've
run
run
into
into the
issues.
problem is that somebody, say here in Omaha, is trying to talk to Google, and they can't reach them over IP6 or some other place. They know it's IP6 enabled, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. We notice the route is different. That's because
It's going through a V4 tunnel that won't let you do the path into you. That's why it doesn't work. Because it has to be able to discover path into you from end to end. And if it goes through a V4 tunnel or a V4, which is maybe it's
why
when they
couldn't it do
translate a
one?
V6 to V4, if it doesn't pass that IPM or ICMP.
This tunnel guy, this guy right here, right, that talks to another tunnel host over here, there is segmentation reassembly on that for sure, right? So it can stretch in whatever it needs to do, right? But I guess I don't understand really what you're.
You were saying something like ICMP has to be enabled. Yes.
Otherwise, it can't do.
You have no traffic, nothing.
Yeah.
It's got to figure out how big a packet it can send before it sends any packet.
So from two different perspectives, from a local area network, it has to work number one because it replaces ARP, right? There is no more ARP. That's how I find out what address you're at. How do I talk to you? From end station to end station across the internet, has to work for a lot of different reasons, but most specifically to find out window sizing. And does that end device support IPsec or not? There's I don't know, maybe 10 things that ICMP is really required for an end-to-end communication. But the most important one is windowing size, MTU size.
So my question was, There's a router on the path between you and your IP6 destination. And they have everything set up except maybe not all of the ICMP sub-protocols.
Yeah.
Most, it's
There's only
very
5.
possible.
There's only 5.
There's only 5 in IP6?
Sometimes they do.
That's a good point. There's 255 before, right? The different ICMP options.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They're 5. I don't know off the top of my head what they are. There's only 5.
But your point is if they don't support all those, then it breaks, right?
That's my question.
But but that's inherent to the requirements for IP version 6 is ICMP has to work, period, right? Multicast is a requirement.
And everything?
I know a lot of
Yes.
cats,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
out SSH1.
In my mind, I think they fixed a lot of stuff. They fixed a lot of stuff that was just broken because we blocked it because there was a problem with the stack on some box that, whatever, we're blocking it for a good reason, right? But in the new protocol stack, you can't block it because it's required for this stupid thing to work, right?
It sounds like what they do is they make it much more.
I gotta ask this then, do they limit the packet size on ICMP?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm trying to
Yeah, there is a limit in
Because in
there.
the
I
time
read
before, I
somewhere.
could send out all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
Giant ICMP
Short
package.
of that.
Well, it sounds like they made it like a much more
But it's a good one.
transparent or neutral.
But isn't there a point where your CRC gets as
They
big
use
as
it for a
your?
lot more than just.
Right. Well, they
Is it
made
there?
it. They made it broader so that you can actually do a lot more with it, and made it more transparent in that respect. But as you said, the result of that is pushing things towards the ends.
I don't think
Which
your point's well taken.
could open up more
I'll be quite honest.
You still have
IPv6
Microsoft in the world.
has given the security community a lot of attack vectors, a lot, right? Because you have the RA issue, you have ICMP issues, you have multicast issues, you have all these different attack vectors now that were inherently blocked in IP version 4, right? But now they're required, so you can't block them, right? So it literally has opened up a lot of
Yeah,
attack
but
vectors.
the thing, it also has, simplified the networking by, giving address space without NAT, so you don't have to dumb firewall issues.
Exactly.
Now it's a matter of, at the main firewall, block all the ports except what you want to come into
Exactly.
a certain host. I mean, a host gets an IP address based on its MAC address. Somebody can't fake that, unless you steal the network card.
Exactly.
That's a great point. It's so you think of this lab right now. We've got 10 net IPs here, so we're not running any local firewalls because nobody from the outside can hit us. V6, we say, oh God, they're going to be able to hit us, but
There's still
they only
you still put a firewall.
right. They only have to hit us with ICMP. I could still do the TCP and UDP based port blocking at the router, right?
Exactly.
Oh, so it's
You
not
still,
really-
the firewall doesn't go away.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Doesn't go away, and it can still handle ICMP on behalf of the host too, depending on your firewall.
Well, that was my next question. Maybe you'll address this. Is the whole idea of NAT or port forward, does that still even exist in the V6 world at all?
No, not really.
It really doesn't. You can't even do it if you want to. I mean, I know you don't have to.
There's NAT-PT, right? You can do it.
NAT-PT.
It's like protocol translation.
Yeah,
Between 4 and 6. And things
Yeah,
like that. But there's not really a NAT overload. Go change your source to this.
The
Doesn't
rewriting
exist.
stuff, that doesn't
I
exist.
mean,
Why? I mean,
Well, that's exactly right. But that's what I was going to say.
There's no
say I
requirement.
wanted to, but is it even possible?
So at that point, your security posture is this. It depends on the firewall, right? And it is an application type firewall that can insert itself inside the application stream and handle things like ICMP traffic on behalf of an end station. There's a lot of different things that are out there now. Cisco does some things. Checkpoint does different things. It just depends on how you want to posture yourself from a security perspective.
Well, the one thing about having IPv6 addresses, it's going to take a long, if you have a /64 or a /48 assigned to your organization, it's going to take a while to scan that.
Well, yeah. So you really think of that. Your scan, your vector is so damn long now, right? To find a
NNAP
host.
does not support scanning IPv6 subnets.
It doesn't, really?
No, it says in its documentation, we do not scan subnets. Type in a whole address.
If you try it, says that's stupid, don't do that again.
Yeah, nice. I haven't tried
Do
that
you
yet.
need a rules base then for each, a rules based on each agent? Or a rules based agent on each node? an internal network to help assure that no outsider is going to play a game with the firewall?
Yeah, I think your point really is the fact that if you look at any modern OS now, they all ship with a firewall of some sort. Right? They all have some type of host prevent or host attack vector solution, right?
Okay.
Whether it's the Windows firewall or
In
Mac
real
OS
time?
10.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
It's
a lockout?
everybody's pushing that more additional security features to the end device, right?
I mean,
And putting it in.
Windows has the firewall, which is controlled by Active Directory. All the Linux distributions have the firewall, which can be controlled by PolicyKit. So, you know, as an administrator of a network, you can control that. So, yeah.
Unless you're running something.
Hey, we've been talking about this.
Firewall.
Pretty straightforward. Honestly, it's IP6 tables. It looks just like the regular IP tables. There's no difference, just addressing changes, right? Same protocol, same ports, all that crap is the same. Same deal. Yeah, use it. Make sure your stuff's secure. Some other stuff. Multicast is a requirement. You have to have multicast work. So some other cool things. FF02:1. It's all hosted on your local network. Ping it. You'll get a response from every single guy on your node.
Assuming they have IP6 turned on.
Yeah. You have IP6. You're gonna respond. Period.
Inventory, ping.
I think this is a typo. I think this is supposed FF02:2 is all routers.
All routers meaning all devices
Everything that-
advertising themselves
Exactly.
as a router.
Right. So how do I find a router? I talk to FF02:2.
Again,
That's
that's
Where's the
replacing the
routers?
broadcast.
The replace for broadcast is multicast. Anycast is there is no more unicast. Anycast, multicast.
Unicast is gone.
What do you guys?
Time?
Is it Linux on these guys?
yeah, if they're booted into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's in Cinemas, right?
What do you got?
So that's-
Show me.
Terminal.
Default configs.
Yep, I've got FAE80 address.
What's the root?
It's /s/bin/i. That's not your path.
Oh, they're still set up in.
Still only have link local, right?
It's a-
There is no router.
That's the Guru Lab
But
setup.
still, try ping 6 space FF02:1.
Right.
Ping 6.
Invalid argument. Oh, I'll try FF02. How about
I
one?
think you might need a special argument to ping 6.
Not really.
No, well,
Or you do IP header show.
I just got to like responding when I'm trying to ping ::1.
FE80
What was the Guru Labs root?
85.
Say it again.
Do you remember what the Guru Labs root was?
No.
Was it? It wasn't work. That was the.
MAKE.
Yeah, that's what it was.
You didn't get an error.
No. It's not
Well, that's
nothing
probably right because there's nothing there.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
What?
Oh, there you
Ping
go.
6.
Did you get 10 responses?
Space E0
Oh, there you go.
FF02:1.
What?
Quick, everybody run over there and look at his screen.
Yeah, meaning you got two ping packets or 2 pongs back for 1 ping.
Which is what we expect since it's
2 pongs
multicast.
back for 1.
Yep.
Two
What you
pongs.
see, what you see now and before.
I never
if
thought
you
about
can
using that
broadcast,
terminology.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's when you see the dupe.
I think you were 12 or 13. I'm looking at slide numbers at the bottom.
Interesting. Try that with.
So this wiki literally goes from start to finish how to enable and get IP version 6 going on Android 2. Pretty straightforward. Again, it's obviously enabled by default, but there's no router, right? So, but you're still going to get the FE80. You're still
The
going to
machines
get
are still going to
period.
respond based on the.
And that's
Right.
specific to
Questions? Comments?
VPNs. Do they exist in this world?
Yeah, interesting point. Yeah. So another interesting point is the fact that IPsec is a requirement for IP version 6.
And describe IPsec.
IPsec is a way to encrypt your data, right?
Secure
it defines
The data payload.
The data
is
payload,
encrypted.
right?
Okay.
Depending on how you could set up different authentication schemes, right, to authenticate your end station. But IPsec is what handles the actual data payload encryption. But it's inherent to IPv6. You've got a cert, you can sign stuff.
So we really don't need, because the way we do VPNs right now is a V4 tunnel over V4. It's V4 tunneling.
And it would look the same, right? From a remote access perspective, right? Teleworker kind of thing.
Yeah, the
Same thing.
Road Warrior.
Exactly the same thing, right? I still have some kind of client, or I use PPTP, or whatever your protocol might be. You're just doing it over version 6.
Well, it would actually be like a PPTP type thing. But you wouldn't need to do that again because
No.
if you encrypted,
If you encrypt at the application layer, you don't really need it. It would
One
be
of the
transparent.
headers has got something in it that says this particular payload is encrypted.
Yeah, and you set that up on your TCP session, right? I want to talk to you via IPsec and all those. How do I talk to you and what's your key and all that stuff? It's actually built into IP version 6.
right? So it's not actually handled at the application. If I have a mail,
It's done at stack layer.
at the stack, okay, so it's on a layer. It's on layer 3, the actual IP layer, right? Okay. So you're
goes back to ICMP again.
Yeah, so you could
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you could telnet over a encrypted V6
Sure.
IPsec tunnel, and
And that's
fine.
handled at layer 3, right? Not
That's
at the
layer 3,
application.
not at layer 7. Okay. Which is what we use VPNs for now.
But the same still holds true if you're the teleworker and you want to gain access to
So
the
you
corporate
would
network, right? You would still need some kind of. I'm going to VPN to an endpoint, and then from that endpoint, once I connect to that endpoint, I still have unfettered access to my corporate network. It still looks the same from a remote access perspective as well.
Even if everything's V6 in the everything V6 world.
I mean, there's multiple ways you can do it, right? You could leave it the way it is and put the firewall at the edge and don't let anything into the network, right? Unless it's permitted ports,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of how you are now, and you still have to VPN into a VPN concentrator. You can still do all of that technology with version 6. You could still leave it that way, or you could open
the
up
IPsec,
everything
right.
and let IP version 6, the IPsec in IP version 6 do that for you.
You're gonna have to do you're gonna have to do the concentrator for a while because a lot of your
I don't think
company
the-
applications are not gonna be
Aware.
Because the
V6
security
aware.
perimeter, the external security perimeter is still going to look like it has a firewall and it still has some kind of remote
Yeah,
access.
because think about that. We spent how many decades reinforcing that model of a security perimeter
Yeah.
around your network?
I don't think that'll ever go away. From an enterprise type perspective, I don't think that perimeter is going to go away. Right? You're still going to filter. You're still going to at that egress point. You're still going to filter inbound connectivities.
Ports, probably.
Ports.
Ports is ports.
But not.
Yeah, or addresses, right?
Or if you want to, addresses. But you don't have to.
yeah, you're probably gonna block countries now.
Yeah, exactly. Japan can't connect to any.
Well, Microsoft's very successfully proven you can do that.
Oh, that's,
Turn off HTTPS.
there's a lot of truth to that, right? But switch Iran, which is it could just block Israel right now?
IP was originally intended as a peer-to-peer. You know, you could.
Yeah, we're
machine you
completely
talk to
going
is
back.
right?
Right?
So when you get into a corporate environment,
It's
the
no longer
corporation
peer-to-peer.
doesn't want you to have it.
So we went from peer-to-peer to a client server back to a peer-to-peer network altogether.
Yeah, search for stuff.
I've looked at it once or twice.
For good, or better, or for worse.
I read about it in the Wall Street Journal. They have a really good write-up for the Wall Street Journal.
One thing
It
I
was pretty technical for Wall Street
noticed
Journal.
that the
Learned
problem
their
now is
business
local hosts.
perspective. But this
Because
is
now there's so many addresses for local hosts. There's your traditional.
February, I believe.
No. And then there's the one with all zeros, or the one with just colons.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a lot of buzz about that. Well, I was coming across somebody that claimed that was a problem just this year. Do you find that very often?
So this section right here, this is the 0/8. 0/8. Those are all local. Block.
Right.
Those are, right. So it could be this. It could be.
So you're saying like a specific application wasn't honoring one of the versions of the...
Often it would do a reverse IP on a local host address and not like, or maybe it was vice versa.
this/8, this/8 are in the same network, right? And if you look at the interface config for LO0, it's going to be this/8.
But that,
1/8.
Yeah.
And you're saying both of those are the same because
They're in the same network. They're not the same. They're a different Anycast address.
Say the
They're in the same network.
127,001.
They're in the same.
127,004.
I gotta stop myself. It's not the same. It's the same prefix. Right? Because there's no more network. It's a prefix. Right. So if we look at the config on this side, do a show. Just do it in config. LO0 is ::1/128. Right? And what that means is it's in IP version 4 terms, it's a /32. It's just that host. Right?
Oh, sure.
But
28-bit.
in this, it's defined as /8. So each stack technically should have a built-in route for this /8. But if you look at the interface config, you do a show and do an IP route, you're going to see this /128 because it's a host. So it all depends on how the operating system guys actually program the current stack. Technically, it should be for this /8. Do an IP route or IP6.
IP6 route. Nope.
Should just be IP. Or is it
Oh,
IP6?
IP space 6 space route space show.
you might have
Dash 6 maybe?
Yeah, -6. Excuse me.
There you go.
I think that wasn't my best.
Oh, okay.
So if we do it on the just kind of plain Jane vanilla Linux box, I don't even have that. Right? It's not even on there.
Yeah, that is.
My 128 is not on there.
Yes, that is. That's FE80.
That's a lot of hops.
I think that's for the password. I keep it.
That's the question is,
What's the password?
You got to type it in before you can go into the room.
Plus your quarter.
yeah.
Kind of blows your mind, that whole firewall thing. And
It's hard for me to get past the idea of no broadcast, of no private IP addresses.
That's when it's killing me. It's no private
It's
IP.
just, I know, I'm just so used to thinking. And Brian made a good point. We're used to the way we are now, even though this way is kind of broken. And V6 fixes a lot of it, but there's 30 years of inertia built on it, 50 years of inertia built on it. It's hard to change.
Well, the thing is, I've been working with this, only, not as long, and I've been dealing with all the brokenness.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that.
So you're starting to see the advantages, right?
No, I've been, I started working with implementing V6, on my network at home and things like that 3 years ago. Conflicts and stuff, and I started realizing this. It's like, why is nobody else jumping on this? Because it fixes all this broken
Yeah, there you go.
It does that, but I can see
Okay, so
corporate side.
obviously you described the way to do V6 is right now the easiest through a tunnel from some V6 provider, right? If I got a Cox cable modem home, if Cox decides to roll this out on their network tomorrow, they're just going to, well, theoretically, someday they're going to do it,
someday
right?
they're going
They
to.
have it. They have an ASN for 6.
Someday they're going to do it. What's going to happen? My
no more
my
Linksys
router at
routing, I get a
home-
new one.
Yeah, so say my router at home right now supports V6. It doesn't get an address. All of a sudden, it's just magically going to get an address that Cox will assign to it.
If it's usually,
If it's
depends on your
V6
stack.
capable,
Depends on your
sure.
stack. It all depends on your stack. What do you run as a router?
DD work.
Does it support version 6?
Yeah,
Some version probably.
Some versions do.
Okay,
Two things, right?
SP2
If it has version 6 support and is enabled by default, and they turn it on, then it automatically should start working.
and you have RA DVD set up, your network should get it.
Well, me, but that'd be Cox, right?
Okay.
They'd run their own RA DVD?
No, you would have to be assigned, and then you would have to forward it on.
From a DD work perspective, I think you'd have to go in and check the box that says IPv6.
And you're going to have to assign.
But how much of that is going to be dependent upon the DOCSIS
Tool that
version
they
you have in your router?
What's
and
that?
in your cable modem?
Well, you're
As
going
an
to
end
have
user,
DOCSIS 3.
for
Okay.
me as a
All right.
provider, I'm going to have to give you a pool of addresses to use, and you're
Well-
going to have to put that in.
No, not necessarily, right? Because that's the way stateless auto config works.
Well, then he doesn't have a router. Then he has a switch.
Well,
No, it still is going to if your stack has IP version 6, it's going to do DAD. It's going to do this process every once in a while, trying to find an address. Do I have is there a router out there? Is there a router out there?
I still
Is there
have a router, but I no longer have a NAT router.
no, you
don't have to
you
do
still
that.
have.
What are you gonna? But then what's your inside address space gonna be? Because I don't believe that the RA says, okay, here, use this /64 pool,
And you're going to get it right here.
inside.
You're going to get it right here. No,
That's
you're
gonna-
not going to get
yes,
anything.
That's
over here.
going to stop.
You still
there.
have to configure this side of it, just like you would with IP version 4.
Exactly.
So your outside could change, but the inside won't.
And from there,
That's why I'm saying that me as a provider, I have to give you that inside address to configure.
not
That is-
necessarily. What they don't do that now? They don't give you an IP version 4 address for your inside now, do they?
I know, but I thought we
because
just.
it's 1918.
They give you an
Right, but they didn't give that to you.
No, because
You had
that's
to
because it's
you,
a standard.
You had to configure it, right?
That's because it's a standard. But I, as a provider, I can't give you one. You can't configure a 1918 inside anymore because it goes away.
Right, there aren't any private IP addressing spaces these days.
So the Hurricane Electric guy, when I talked to him a week or 2 weeks ago, he says, give all your customers a /48. So I've been trying to find client-side equipment. I think there's one. Linksys has got a DIW.
They have a whole new range that they just announced.
that will support IPv. That's supposed to support IPv6
Right.
as a customer premise router.
So I don't know, what does it do? Does it do NAT-PT or does it do V6 natively or?
Well, I haven't bought one yet. That's
Or
why
just
I need
RA,
to buy
it's
one
just
and
the
find it.
router
But do I have to
advertisement.
then take that /48 that I have given myself or given you as a customer, put it on the inside of your device, and then
It's
give
no,
some other thing some other thing, 3 things above it, so it can route aggregate.
They'll probably
so
start
look,
shipping
from an
throughout.
ISP perspective, right? I'm Cox. I'm going to give you a single IP version 4 address. What you do behind that is not my concern.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the same way with IP version 6. I'm going to give you an IP version 6 address, and you're going to discover it via DAD or DHCP or whatever it might be. And what you do behind it is your deal.
How can you give me a single address if all of the addresses behind
Event-
there are going to be publicly routed?
Okay.
I'm with you, right? But eventually it's going to be to the fact that there is no more little Soho kind of deal, right? And it's just a switch. You plug every 4
Right, it'll be a
devices.
switch.
Okay, let me tell you how the Comcast trial went, because I have friends who were in the Comcast trial in Florida. This is how they did it. Now they stopped the trial and they've taken all the toys away. Not fair. Okay, they used a method where they assigned you your standard IPv4 DHCP address, and your router went and requested via RA a V6 address, which you actually got a 64 block. You got that. You did your router was supposed to do some configuration, but since we had to actually put our own DD word on the router because they weren't giving smart routers, there was no smart router, we wrote our own little script. So our DVD did that, and she had very nice, happy configurations.
So you had to put the /64 in the DHCP version 6
No, we had
configuration on the
no.
router?
We put it into the RA. We put it into the RA DVD comp file, and into the and basically the router.
But you had to request that prefix from your ISP, though, right?
No, the router itself. After when we brought up IP6 module sent out the request.
Really?
That was just our default
That
handout
was-
was
That's
So it requests whatever deal it requested a 64,
From their head
and
end.
it updated its own config file and
no,
assigned that
yeah,
64.
we had to
internally?
we had to create this little script that we found out info from their forum, but I'd have to go get the script if anybody wants it. But right now, it's not going to do us any good because Cox doesn't have it. Cox currently has an assigned prefix.
So basically, you grabbed a prefix that wasn't used, you configured RADVD, and at that point, it actually told your upstream how to get to this prefix. Go through me.
Basically, they handed us the prefix, so that assigned it to our. Basically, signed us a semi-tunnel, signed it to us. I don't know if it signed it to our outside interface.
Okay.
We had to assign that to our the address to our outside interface.
Okay.
Set up
was that a
set up
manual
for-
config though? Did you
It
actually
was part.
type
It was part. We had to do it as part of the script.
Okay.
Because again, no routers were smart enough at this time. This was about 8 months ago we did this. When they first started the trial. So with script, set this up, set it up, and turned on the that forward like you had in your slide,
Right.
and voila.
One thing I don't think we don't think about is the fact I've got, I think, probably close to 30 cider pools in my address space at work. As an ISP with IPv6, I'm going to have one address pool. It's going to be a /32 or a /48, and then I can turn around and I can hand off /64 to every one of my customers.
Yeah, you can cut it up how.
And it all route aggregates back to my one /32 or /48 that I own.
Yes.
So I don't have to worry about the fact that I've got 30 different cider pools that I got to have to figure out routes for.
Yeah.
So this is the ISP, right, with a bunch of routers up in the cloud, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, and this is your premise router, right? Are you saying that you went, where did you get the prefix to assign to the interface?
We sent out a request to the upstream router from us.
How? With RA?
Yeah, it was an RA. It was basically we brought up our IP6.
So you configured this interface with Slack, right? Auto config.
Auto config. It sent a request. We got an address. God, I can't remember this for sure.
You got an address, right?
Yeah, but it was it was a address ::1. Okay, so basically that was actually a prefix. We could use. They told us to use it as a prefix.
Okay.
Like if you think about cable companies, I think you're plugging a computer into your cable modem.
Right.
Yeah, so they told that we used the script to build that into a prefix.
So in my mind, thinking about this from an ISP perspective, it's pretty straightforward because all I need to do is turn this router into a bridge,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking earlier when you were writing the.
right? So it's at that point it's just a bridge,
Yeah, you just
right? So
turn on
if
your,
I have a host here, I'm going to send do my DA, my auto config. It's going to pass right through that premise and get an IP version 6 address from its upstream neighbor. So it's a bridge at that. It's not
Yeah.
firewall. It's not a router. It's just a bridge.
the only thing that I added to my script is I added some IP6 tables to block
Sure.
the Windows 139 and
The usual suspects.
yeah.
But I
But
mean,
as an
honestly,
ISP, the other thing I want to think
everybody's-
about is the fact that I don't want to give. Okay, so then everybody downstream for me becomes neighbor.
Yep.
And from a security standpoint, I don't really think that I want 2,000
So then at that-
neighbors in my pool.
From your perspective, you need to worry about what is your layer 2 topology up there, right? Are you using private VLANs? What, or if I have another client connected on the same router, what is the segmentation of these two interfaces from a virtual perspective on the router? Things like that. Because at that point, this whole thing down here turns into a single /64, and it's one network, and everybody can talk to each other. Depending on what you're doing here on your SDIs.
You treat them as routable 64 groups, and routed 64s, and then they you don't let one group talk to the one group's quote.
From an ISP perspective, I would start charging by IP. Right? You want to connect 15 things? It's fine. It's 15 times your month.
It costs a penny per machine.
Here you go.
Per year.
You'll be able to tell.
You want your refrigerator on the internet? It's going to be $5 a year.
And you'll be able to tell that little Timmy's been downloading something on his machine specifically.
Thanks for that, I will, yeah.
On,
What did you have over here, Adam?
Okay, so the example on the left is sort of a standard, edge network. You've got one IP address. It could be your home, it could be your work, whatever, small company, right?
Right.
Say it's Cox, so your outside IP 63.111 I got there, and there's your router there with the X through it. And the inside IP you gave it 192.168, and internally it's all 192.168, whatever, okay? That router runs DNS, runs DHCP, and it runs NAT right now. What does that setup look like in an all V6 world right there? Can you help me do that?
Go over to the next diagram.
yeah, draw a new one instead of overdrawing one.
Well, no, draw on the right, Brian. To the right. Draw on that.
Draw on that
I drew a
one.
blank.
He's got a blank one.
He's got a blank
Yeah.
template there for you.
Oh,
So I'll take that
Just
one.
for that.
for V4 it looks the same.
No, V6.
B6.
Right. For V6 it looks like this.
That's a
That's a
bridge.
switch now.
Bridge. Yeah.
A bridge.
Bridge, switch, whatever you want to call it.
It's basically
That's really
Is
the way to
it
think about it, isn't it?
possible to have V6 on the outside and V4 on the inside?
yes.
So if this is a Linux box,
Yeah.
there's nothing stopping you from doing IP6 tables on a bridge interface, BBI. It's layer 2.
Yeah.
Okay, as an
where
ISP, that middle box is a switch, and each port gets assigned a 64
It could.
or a 48
Maybe
prefix.
not, right? Because at that point, you're only worried about layer 2, right? What if your interface for this guy becomes virtual and it's VR0? And I don't really care about it. I care about these things down here.
Where does the RA DVD run?
From an ISP perspective up here.
Okay, so it wouldn't be me running that. It'd be the ISP.
You could, right? I think there's 9. I think that's what I just draw here. I think there's 9.
How much complexity do you want to build into
There's
your
9
own
ways
home
and
network?
Sundays to actually roll it out,
Well-
right? And I think that's the challenge that all the ISPs are going through right now is how do you roll this out?
How
I'm trying
much
to
do you
figure out how
push
much
to
money
the
I want to
end
spend on my router to manage everybody's IP.
What does this CPE device look like? What if they have multiple devices behind it?
Yeah.
I think they're
Well,
kind of churning through all
Okay,
that.
that makes a lot of sense. Thinking of it as a bridge makes a lot more sense.
Or thinking,
don't
Or
think
a
it,
two-port router. I mean.
don't think of it as a bridge yet,
Very good.
because you've got a lot of customer equipment that isn't IP6 aware yet. So that's going to be a
it's hybrid.
Well, and some of it
Yeah.
never will be IP6.
If you want
Yeah.
IP6 on the inside,
IP4
you have
stuff
to think of that as
never-
hybrid.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, in
people-
reality, you're not going to have V6 on the inside right away. You're
Yeah,
going to
maybe
do
goes
a
off to
tiered
separate
conversion.
Yeah, yeah.
So you'll support V6 to your CPE,
Allow us to
and then V4 on the back end, or
Yeah.
V6 on the back end, and this guy will
Yeah.
handle the translation.
Yeah, I doubt
Not everything's gonna support V6,
I doubt
so
the
we have to do the
Xbox
old stack
360 will ever get
Right.
V6, but
Dual stack.
So I'm a system administrator running a web server.
Shame on you.
How dare you?
.xxx.
I'm hosting it locally, right? It's not on Rackspace or whatever. Hosting it
Oh, I'm
locally.
just, yeah.
Okay.
I'm hosting it on my premises.
Right.
In an IPv6 world, what is that going to look like?
It's different than it is today.
If you're
Okay.
working with Cox, it won't be visible.
It's all by ports.
If you're working with my company, it won't be
It
visible.
looks,
'cause my router won't.
your
be
upstream ISP still can block ports, right? It's not,
Okay.
even from a V6 perspective, it's the same ports. It's not changed
Right.
from that perspective. So if you think of Cox Media or Cox household stuff, they block it down for they're still going to do that.
Even if you're on my ISP's network, my router doesn't have an image on it that'll route IPv6 anyway. So
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that needs to be rolled out, thought through. And honestly, I think every ISP is going to roll out differently. And I think it's going to be trial and error. just like a
And there's gonna
Comcast
be
thing, right?
constant
Everybody's
screw-ups.
going through these heartburns right now. How do you get to that next step?
How about load balancing?
It's a ball of
Because we sort of do load balancing is basically reverse
There's
that right
a
now,
couple
right?
of challenges. Load balancing is one of them. The other piece is multi-homing, right? Because you've got one address and you're gonna, what's your default route look like? How do I get to you? It's not like I go to X to go this way and Y to go that way. It's the same both ways, so you have to rely on
Your
There's
interface could have
there is a
50 or
bunch. There's a
addresses
bunch
on
of worms within, from an enterprise perspective, that you just.
Your arm getting tired.
The other thing we really didn't talk about at all is name resolution. Is Lisp LISP? It's Label Information
Not the
System.
language.
Something called.
They
something.
could have chosen a better.
No doubt.
Lisp.
Let's come up with something that has more
This-
negative connotations.
Facebook has chosen to use the Lisp format for load
language
balancing.
behind it.
That's what
Facebook also does protocol translation from 6 to 4 from a load balancing perspective. Their infrastructure is going to continue to stay
Oh,
version
okay.
4, and they just serve it up via.
So that's how they handle load
version
balancing. They're
6.
cheating by
Yep.
sticking with V4.
They're really cheating. They're
That
not
makes
doing
sense.
anything native V6. It's just on the edge, translated to version 6.
Which we're all probably going to be doing for a while
Yeah,
anyway.
okay, so.
You just have to speak up there.
But if you look at like OLUG, OLUG, perfect example, right? For the, it's not cheating, right? It's dual stack.
Yeah.
You can natively get to that version via 4 or 6,
Right.
natively.
Because
Is there a dig 6? So if I want to find out what the OLUG IPv6 address is, I can-
Yeah. If you look at ns1.olug.org, it actually has an IP version 6 address. And you'll go through Hurricane to get to it.
If you just dig for a quad A record.
Yep, this guy. The quad A laser.
I must be the only person.
I think Adam was, I'm pretty sure Adam and John are the only one that got that.
I was gonna say I must be the only person in this room who doesn't get that.
Oh, Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Aqua Teen Hunger
It's
Force.
oh, that super cartoon on Adult Swim.
Yeah, one that I
No
found
one
annoying
can
when I've
defeat the
seen
quad laser.
when I've seen
Yeah.
snippets of it. I found very annoying.
Oh, it absolutely is. Okay, so you had to do the Hurricane Electric route.
Annoying
because
isn't unwatchable.
Linode didn't support this.
Linode doesn't support it. Cox obviously doesn't support it.
Yeah.
So if you look at from my perspective, I tunnel into Hurricane from home, and then I tunnel
Then-
back out to OLUG.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So which Linode site is OLUG at?
I think the New Jersey.
Oh, that's where
Yep.
I'm at. That's where my site-
Okay,
Okay.
Rob.
I got a few questions. Is RAD-V the same, the router advertisement, that's the same as Zebra, Quagga, Rib?
They're not. They do the same functionality. They're not the same thing. RAD-B is a specific daemon just for RAs, just for sending out router advertisement.
Is it
Quagga
only IPv6?
and Zebra is an actual fully fledged router application that runs that actually does send RAs if you set it up for version 6. Two different things.
So
One's
you
an
don't really
application,
need
the other one's a daemon.
RAD-VD, you can incorporate that into your Quagga.
Yeah,
or
if you're running
Zebra.
Quagga from a routing perspective,
Oh, that's
you don't need RADV.
So you can just turn it
Oh.
on.
You can just turn it on and enable it.
Yep.
The other thing is, when it comes to high availability,
Oh,
load balancing, I mean, there's the Anycast, where your IP6 will pick up the closest node. I imagine that's one of the reasons why they require ICMP too.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh, I didn't even think about
if
this.
you're doing load balancing, you know, you have, say, 2 servers in the same data center. The Anycast, there's not going to be any difference in the Anycast. Is it always going to choose just the first one? Did you cover Anycast in the talk? So Anycast, again, is oftentimes your DNS record should have it. So when you look up something in DNS, Anycast should provide the ability, given a list of name servers, to find the one that's closest to you. So it's not exactly multicast, it's not unicast, but so if you want it to host, you know, have some redundancy in your web servers, but they're in the same data center, I guess I was just wondering if
Well, you go to
all the
Facebook.
same name and you do multiple IP addresses, and then your DNS server is going to just hand them out in rotation.
So you have to do it the lane
The DNS round robin.
DNS like we do in V4 now.
Yeah, you
I think that I
Or you do it like Facebook did with the V6 to V4 gateway. Answer V6 on the end and then parse it out to a V4 short side.
Or you do the arbitrary V6 prefix : 1, and then as to your load balancing device, and then have that device have your full
load balancing in a way
V6
is built in
address.
IP6.
Right. Yeah, right. So you wouldn't have to have the V4 on the back end to do the load
Yeah,
balancing in
and-
V6. But you're asking, is that load balancing built into V6?
Well, it is in the sense of finding the quickest DNS reference.
Right, but there's no intelligence to it, right? That box is down. I mean, it's just like round robin DNS now. I can put 4 IPs in a DNS, but if 3 of them are down, DNS doesn't know that. It's going to just route it to the next one on the list. If it's down, then the end user's screwed. Right? That's the advantage. That's the difference between intelligent and non-intelligent load balancing. So you got an intelligent load balancer that actually does tests. Oh, this box is down. I'm not going to route to it anymore, right?
Well, I think it would, because if the box is down, it's not going to get an ICP ping back.
But DNS
And then DNS
doesn't-
is going to say, okay, well, the quickest DNS server now is this 4th one out of the list of 4.
All right.
Well, then
You're right.
figure
I
it
keep
out.
forgetting about that end-to-end ICMP.
Using the Anycast protocol.
So what's your question?
Well, I guess I'm just wondering, when it comes to load balancing, I mean, you're trying to find the
Affirmation.
closest DNS server. Anycast is kind of a form of load balancing. It kind of seems like IP6 has load balancing built into it. But I guess in a way, it kind of depends on where exactly your machines are physically located.
Depends on how your name resolution is implemented in your stack, right?
Yeah,
Because it's not going to send out 4 queries at the same time and see which one comes back. It's just like it is in IP version 4.
Here's your request.
No,
Thank you. Goodbye.
I don't think so. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
no, well, you give it 2 DNS servers, 4 DNS servers in your host config. It's going to use the Anycast protocol to find which one is responding the fastest. So that's not round robin.
Those are going to happen somewhere.
But again, I mean, that might, like you're saying, that depends on the operating system.
It all depends on the name resolution numbers. It's not going to. I haven't dug into it clearly as far as you have, but I'm kind of confused. What you're saying is that it'll try the DNS first before it sends a request, a DNS query.
Well, I mean, if it has to have ICP and P to even talk to it might be.
No,
I
it's
don't really-
not. It's still UDP. It's still fire and forget. It's not going to send an ICMP to find out if I can talk to you. It's still going to fire it out.
So you're saying if you're only doing UDP traffic, you wouldn't have to do the ICP?
Go until it hits something?
There's no setup like there is in TCP, right? There's none. Right? I fire it, I forget. That's what UDP does.
So then, so what?
But his question is, how does
I guess
that,
I
how does that
looked up
jive with what you said before, where
About the
2
Windows
V6
side.
hosts have to do ICMP to connect
They
to
have
each
to do
other?
path MTU first.
They have to do that first?
Path MTU for
That's
UDP.
for specifically to TCP though. Specifically
Oh,
to TCP.
that's just for TCP
Windows
communications.
is only TCP.
Well, I know Windows,
Oh.
yeah. I didn't. The ICMP stuff was only required if you're setting up
Yeah.
a TCP connection first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, UDP.
It's still
Oh,
UDP
so
is still
UDP
UDP.
is
Still is fire
okay.
and forget.
If it makes it intact,
That's for
great.
weird.
If not,
It's still unchanged
figure
technically,
it,
is it?
do it again.
Yeah, you still
Just
have
think
to
about this,
include your
how it's gonna affect,
CRCs and
like,
everything in your
heartbeats
packets
and
if you want to
clusters.
make sure they get there.
Exactly. But
That's
from a
the
name
bottom
resolution
balancing stuff
perspective, it
is
still
really
is going to go
fuzzy.
down the list of whatever
That's gonna be-
whatever formula you have in your etsyresolve.com for Linux box, right?
Yeah,
Whatever's first, it's still gonna query that first.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going off of what I've read, not from what, I've
In
actually.
practice.
Okay.
Well-
If you look at the Anycast protocol, especially as it relates to DNS, you might be different.
I'll look
But
into
if it's,
that.
if
Yeah,
it
that's
doesn't
really
have
interesting.
ICMP.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia page on Anycast. Anycast addressing routes datagrams to a single member of a group of potential receivers that are all identified by the same destination address.
Right.
It's called one to one of many.
Yeah. I understand Anycast, but I don't understand how it comes into play for DNS for resolution.
Because a lot of DNS, there's a lot of DNS servers that are identified by Anycast
Okay.
addresses.
Either down or they're further away. You know, especially for a mobile user on a phone.
So if you look like the name server for OLUG, right? It's not an Anycast, it's a Unicast.
But Hurricane Electric runs a Unicast, an Anycast,
caching on name server.
yeah, name server, and so.
Depends. So I guess it depends. If your DNS is an Anycast destination, those algorithms were put in play. If your DNS infrastructure is not Anycast, then none of that is relevant. Does that make sense?
And mobile addressing is that's a whole other can of worms because that has to do with network renumbering, right?
So I think from your what you're trying to say is how do you use it? How do you use Anycast to your advantage for a load balancing type scenario, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it still holds true, right? So if you put an Anycast address on from in a AAA, right, for a web server, right, and you have a farm of 15 behind this Anycast address where they all respond to that Anycast address. If it's down, it's down. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's not going to respond.
Supposedly,
So
it's
its
supposed to
neighbors
hop,
understand.
supposedly
So-
it's supposed to hop to the next site where the Anycast address is.
So whoever handles that Anycast address, I'd have to look at this, but it's not like multicast, right? So it's not like every host gets that traffic.
Right.
It's the Anycast server that gets the traffic and farms it out behind it.
So
It's
that
my
is
understanding. It's my understanding. I don't
gotta
know.
have
built in
device.
because you just described load balancing like we do it now, right?
Exactly.
It's got an
You gotta have a
aggregator.
device in the middle.
Do you? I don't know. I don't know.
That's what it
for sure.
sounds, that's what it sounds like. There's a
That's what it
device in
sounds
the
like
middle
to
that
me.
decides which one it goes to.
Because
A traffic
it's
cop.
It's part of the BGP back. Stuff in the middle is what's supposed to be handling it.
I don't know. I'll research that and let you know.
Yeah.
Because one of the topics I actually have from my real work perspective is load balancing for IPv6.
According
I
to
just have to look
Wikipedia, according to the Wikipedia page, it doesn't look like you have to have a device in there. It seems like it handles it all through BGP, through a routing protocol.
Oh, really?
So you say, I want to
Well,
get
maybe the
this that
router's
says-
the device I'm thinking of.
Well, I guess it would be. I mean, something's got to be the one that's.
I'm not necessarily saying a dedicated
Yeah, you're
device
right.
with
Somebody's got to
intelligence
say,
on
you're
it.
going here. You're
But
going
yeah,
here.
that there's got to be some device that says, okay, I got an Anycast,
I got it.
and I got to decide which port I send it to. And that could just be built into the router.
PFM.
This on the freaking manual?
Here's where the magic happens.
It's a
Look,
great
Henning.
question. I don't know.
Yeah,
Give me
I
a day or two, I'll
That
respond.
is-
That'd be great.
I don't know.
Is that-
I don't know. I don't even know how like an F5 would fit in the IPv6.
Right.
I don't know.
F5. It's a
Load
load. It's a
balance.
load balance.
Or I know LBS doesn't support IPv6 now, which doesn't make sense because that's what Facebook is using. So.
They
How
wrote
much
their own.
fun is this going to be for all of the Cox Cable and Quest and whatever subscribers that have your average Linksys device sitting there so they can run two
You
or
all
three
gonna
computers?
buy-
Hey, we've got a new cable modem. It'll be a new cable
It
modem
will
that's
be-
an all-in-one.
It will be a chunk of change in somebody's pocket.
That's right. Everybody buys
Yeah,
stock.
Linksys.
Everybody stock in Cisco, right?
Yeah.
Everybody go
Linksys.
buy stock in Motorola
And Motorola, that's right.
and
Yeah,
Cisco
Motorola.
and Netgear and
But
D-Link.
how much fun are these people going to have swapping that hardware out?
Oh,
That ARM computer.
hopefully it will be basically.
Is that how come Cox has been hiring a lot of tech support reps
There will be a
lately?
lot of tech support It's going to be that category in the new.
One plus
So here's-
one
I got a
equals-
fleeting email from
Here's two sentences
a headhunter the other
from the
day.
Wikipedia page
Text
that
script.
I think sort of sums it up.
Just today, I deleted it. This is back in Iowa, but yeah, they're like looking for
Simultaneously
hundreds of
same
tech support
destination
people.
address range for
And I'm sitting there going,
places. This results in packets of destination range being routed
Out of that.
to the nearest point. So it actually is the router that's saying, you go here, you go here, you go here. Yeah. So it's through BGP. You're right. It's through BGP.
It's built into the routing protocol
That's
stack.
exactly right. The decision-making process is actually done through BGP.
As long as-
Wikipedia's the rescue.
as long as
It's
you're-
not a separate physical device that does it. It's
It goes
just,
on to even say
it's part of the.
built on it.
That's right, stateless. Connectionless protocols, because it breaks state. Of course, you have half my conversation with the server and half my conversation that's going to break your state.
Yeah. So you make it.
I'm trying to remember if the attic can.
Is now used, right? But it requires proprietary
Gonna have to study
custom
this
IP
stuff.
stacks. Yeah, that's a big thing.
I mean, ideally, you wouldn't really need a Linksys router. You just buy a switch, right? If they're just going to give you a bunch of addresses.
You just use your own
Yeah, no,
Linux
they'll let
box
you do
and
it,
say,
and then they'll
give
bill
me,
you when
give
you
me
do
my
it.
address.
I already do that.
Bang.
Yeah, that's what I already do that too.
My point
I think
was,
the motion picture people
most
will get to you way
people
before your eyes.
don't know
My
what
wireless
Linux
router is a
is.
separate
They
box.
don't know how to set a router up. They don't know how to set anything up. They plug
You know,
something in,
I got
and
to say
if it doesn't work, they're on the phone.
Yeah. You know the thing about this is though.
You say that.
Brian, Roberson, are you gonna share your talk? Is that gonna be on the?
It's Ustream. It's Ustream, dude.
Yeah, it's streamed.
But I mean the
The slides.
How much more you got?
What do I get out of it?
Thank you for the.
Thank you, Brian.
Are you available for corporate
Yeah.
speeches?
My brain is full.
If the price is right, anything. Yeah, this.
I think I've got a lot. I think I've got a lot to learn. That's what I'm saying. I sort of thought I had a handle on it.
You start breaking it down
I
into
was
some
actually
basics.
starting to read about
Those
BGP not too long ago. It's like, and then I see this kind of stuff. I'm like,
Are you gonna dual stack?
Yeah, I know. I sort of went up before HRP. I can get down to this little racks and BGP, and I'm like, oh, it's not the same way.
BGP started maybe I had heard him talk about like 2 chapters out of a book.
You want to talk about this job security or this is the transition, right? What are all the different ways?
Cisco has got to be putting more classes out there to get people educated up on this.
Is there any V6 stuff in the CCNA curriculum?
Last year or 2 years ago? No, it was 2 years ago.
When I say principle, we're just looking at
It's
it
not
like.
on the test or anything yet, as far as you know?
Not as far as I know.
So there you go. We'll have to see when.
Because I wanted to ask him that question, and we've just gone through with a subnet, you know, of an A and everything. I just like, crap, how's 6? He's like, whoa. Yeah.
Think of all
Are you
people that are
serious?
currently
This-
running
the 6
networks
stuff
at
is in the
whatever
CCNA
level. that
I haven't looked at the
got
books recently.
How much?
Well, I can tell you it's on the IE shit.
That's right.
For sure.
Everything is going to have to get changed before too long. But every one of these people's got to get re-educated because that knowledge, it sounds like a large part of it. Bye-bye.
So there you go.
One thing that's still there is the networking is just the network address.
I see other headaches.
It's still conceptually the same
Took me a
thing. There's a
weekend.
lot more over here than there used to be.
Shameless plug. At Infotech this year, we're going to have a tech from, crap, where's it from? Tell me what's it, Jellicos? Leon from Jellicos is going to talk about IPv6. He probably won't do as good a job as Brian just did. But we can go pepper him with all the same questions we get Brian. We'll see if we get the same answers.
Probably won't.
That's a reliability test, right?
Yeah, we have V6 category. Well, I'm thinking, like we were thinking, in the next 5 years, how big is training on this going to be? Retraining all these network technicians who, think of all your employees who are experts on V4 now, know how all this works.
Oh, we're going through it right now. I mean,
Or even if they're not that expert, they're just capable.
how are we doing it?
Like, how are you doing retraining? You're just saying, hey, learn this, here's a book, read it?
We're still in the how do we deploy it phase.
Oh, okay.
How much of it is unlearning?
Well, yeah.
Well, it's not even just that, but now think about everything's being pushed out of the protocol. That means even as me as a server administrator, I now have to actually think from
A security posture.
Oh, that's a good point.
I have to go back and re-engineer,
You never had to worry about
re-architect
networking
what my
before,
servers are doing and how they're set up and configured. I mean, now you're
And then you
scaring
get
me because I'm thinking about
packages
this.
that
All
might
these
be
addresses are public. What happens to my heartbeats? All of these interfaces are now public.
FE80, baby.
Yeah. Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah, right. Okay. So let's run to FE80. Okay, that'll work.
Which raises a good point, though. Yeah, in large corporations, you've got a separation between the network guys and the systems guys and the security guys.
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, aren't the systems guys?
Everyone is equal.
A heck of a lot more about the networking side.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, it depends how it's implemented, but still.
yeah, engineering wise, I gotta step back and go, oh crap, there's a whole new can of
So,
worms. 'cause
okay,
everything's
at
pushed
West,
off.
for example, a big company, a lot of networks, good example. You've got to retrain you got to train all these people on how to do this stuff. Obviously, from a process procedure standpoint, you're still figuring out how you're going to roll this out company-wide. How are you addressing that from a knowledge issue of your employees?
HR.
Just, or are you?
Is it really recording?
Okay, hang on.
All right.
Hold on.
I'm going to end the meeting.
Brian's
So
gonna answer that question after.
thanks everybody for coming, and we can talk after I shut some things off.
Go down to the bar.
Hold on.